I'm here to celebrate the judge and generally speaking, kind of kick off this amazing week of just cinema. So, you know.
So good so far.
Yeah, I have no complaints about Toronto.
It's okay, we wish you did.
As a matter of fact, I've actually distilled socialism in this box. It wasn't easy. I'm bringing it back to America.
Yeah,
lots to celebrate with the judge, Robert.
Yeah.
You sure gave yourself over to the movie, too. Could you talk about that process of surrendering to the story of the film?
That's an excellent principle to discuss. I remember, when you're in development, it's one thing. It's all just promise. Like, oh, I bet this thing could be. And then you're in pre-production. It's like, you know what, this thing better be. And you're really starting to get to know all the characters that are actually going to come together, department heads and David and I and Susan and, the story and casting and all that. And then you're on location, and it's too late to attach your neuroses to anything. You're in action, and I love that part of it. So there was something extremely unpredictable about it, seeing as how the sorts of movies I've been up to since 2007 or so. And yet it felt to me a really natural, that was the big surprise, that I surrendered to just kind of a very natural return to something that's the grosser part of my ambition anyway,
Grosser.
Bigger.
Larger.
Bigger, okay, that's right.
That's right.
As opposed to gross.
Right.
David talked about how everyone brought their personal experience to this. Can you talk a little bit about that from your perspective?
I mean, I guess I could. I found myself just crying all the time, but not really out of my own, like, this is reminding me of my own. It was more just like that thing, which is, to me, it was like, I got caught up in the reality that the movie expresses, So it's, Hank's mom's funeral is every funeral, and Hank's cutoff with his dad is every cutoff that anyone's ever had. It's not even particularly a father-son story, because I could imagine that it could have been the judge, could have been the mom, and I just think about these kind of family dynamics, and they light up constellations that are just very, emotional.
And Duncan was telling us about the 90-minute rehearsal
Yes.
of curveballs and stuff. So how do you, I know how you do that. That's what you do. You're capable of that. I've seen you do it. But in the film, there are moments between you and Duvall where it's just like your histories are arguing with each other, your persona, and then you somehow become human again in the scene and come out again.
Right.
Is that a modulated choice, or does it just happen?
Well, what's happening is always happening, and then I think part of it is you think a scene's going to go one way, and then with Bobby or Vince or Vera or Billy Bob, you realize, okay, we thought, and now that this scene really represents this, so you kind of put a pin in it and go, all right, we don't need to cover that ground again. That ground is actually, thinking it's going to be covered on page 60, in Act 1, so when you go back, when you're shooting out of sequence, it's just this kind of weird game of Sudoku where I think collectively we're all going, all right, we really hit that thing. And a lot of it for me too was, and Duvall says this all the time, it's about, he says, if you watch a documentary about someone telling a story about a terrible loss they had or about a fragmented relationship or something, they're always sitting on the feeling, and they're trying not to feel their feelings, And that was one of the biggest challenges, because we became so close to this story that it was almost like I could talk about a scene and have this, catharsis, but you can't just play 120 catharsis. And also I hate it when I see that in movies. It's like, all right, is everyone always crying in real life? And then there's also that sense of, what's my you know, my persona's motive in this character, in this thing, it's like that was the first thing I had to smash and just say, Hank is really observing this situation that's happening around him and to him, and he becomes the person who has to go through this terrible and wonderful crucible. But it was really just about doing less and 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 less. And I like being busy, and I like to talk, and I like to be active and all that stuff. So sometimes I feel like I was literally just sitting on my hands. And also realizing part of the surrender is surrendering to the company that I found myself in, and saying, these people are so good. And it's their moment, and I'm here with them. You know,
I liked Hank's sense of disappointment in the film, and what I took away from that was, and it's, you know, I think everyone has complicated relationships with their parents, probably. I mean, I certainly do. And what I took away from Hank was a sense of disappointment that when he is in his father's presence, he's a child again. The disappointments and the way he was treated and all that stuff comes bubbling back, even though he's now middle-aged man, he's successful, as soon as he's in the same room with his father, all of a sudden he's that 10-year-old kid again.
Yeah.
And that I found quite powerful. And because I guess maybe I've seen it before, I don't know. But it's a really specific and odd and uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah. David was very adamant about that, and I know it's a truth, you know. I don't want to say that you kind of morph back into some, you know, unevolved version of yourself, but there's that, you know, the dialogue, an unfinished dialogue from any point in time, at any you could call it trauma or any you know, disappointment. You know, I had an appointment for Hank had an appointment for his dad to acknowledge that even though he gave him the kind of crap end of the stick, he went and made something of himself. Now, is that because when the judge says you're welcome, as the audience we go, God, I know that one. Yeah. Oh boy, you're good. You still didn't hear me, you know, whatever. It's like, by the time I'm saying, why didn't you, why? Those are all the questions of a frustrated child. Yeah. The whys are like, oh, okay, so you don't know the answer in and of yourself. So you're not an adult, are you? You 40-something-year-old schmuck, you know? And that's me, and that's so many people that I know. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with a relationship or a mom, dad, or sibling, or you know, significant other. It's just it's a worldview, and I think that's really what, to me, the judge means is, you know, what is the judgment that we project onto the world, which really reflects back on ourselves about how we're misunderstood and how we did it anyway. And you know what I mean? We overcomplicate these things. But, you know, and I'm so happy that the film doesn't really have one of those Hollywood resolutions. It's kind of, they go, oh, everything's tied up so nicely. I go, really? Did you see the same movie that we made?
Why is that important?
Because that's how life is, I think.
Because it's not clean, it's never resolved.
No, it's incredibly, it's just filthy. But in a way that, you know, there's something about it that it just becomes palatable because you realize, wow, it's just kind of this amazing, never-ending obstacle course. But I also do feel that there's a real awakening for Hank. You know?
There's a sense of optimism without it being all tied up nicely in a Hollywood ending.
I know, it just kicks me in the stomach in the nicest way.
Did you deliberately sabotage that scene when you're on the bike? And I mean, normally it would be like, you know, that's the big emotional Oscar moment. And was that like we can't do it that way?
The idea behind that was just that Hank he's saying things are so just, oh God, I don't know what to do here. Oh my God, that was me. You know, I'm going to escape into this this moment of reverie and nostalgia. And it's like, no, you're not. Because there's big forces at play, you know.
Do you enjoy being the producer kind of guy looking after your fellow actors on set, or does that distract you?
I think past a certain point, and I think some of this is just a function of age, is that it's a requirement. you know, you kind of, whether you're credited with being one of the kind of, you know, I want to say pallbearers, and, you know, and also, you know, just one of the pillars of something that's kind of a difficult endeavor, and so many personalities come in just stick to the principle of being, you know, kind of vigilant and trying to be of service. It's just good medicine because it takes you out of your own ego's head anyway.
I have a question.
My lord.
The one that
This is the one. I'm waiting for it.
the shower scene with Robert Duvall,
Yeah.
and just was fascinated by the preparation for that. He seems confused at that point,
Right.
and it of course it's very poignant to anyone who's been in the position of having to clean their own parent, you know, that kind of thing, and jumps back into that. I'm just wondering the preparation for that and the duration.
Yeah, boy. I mean, you know, first of all, I just gotta, you know, tip my hat again to Bobby, because it was one of those things, like, you know, every time you take a role, you go, oh no, do we have to do that?
Yeah.
Like, because it's such a risky thing, and it's like, and we've all seen people, you know, take those risks, and it's executed in a way that's just not, you're not looked after when it happens, or it's too graphic, or it doesn't have any balance to it, so it's like, look, this isn't your face, man, this is real. It's like, yeah, you know, realism is kind of the death of cinema in some ways, you know. I'm coming here to, I'll bring the reality, you just do your job.
Yeah.
And so it was just this thing that we felt was important. It came, obviously, you know, out of a kind of metaphoric experience that the director had, and it was one of those things that we just didn't want to second guess it, so we did it very carefully, but then we did it very quickly. And I think, again, a credit to the writing, which is, you know, I think one of the big reasons that the judge works is that the script is a Swiss watch. You cannot make other connections and other flywheels and have it operate the way that it does. And there's a beautiful balance between, you know, Lauren's involvement in that scene, and it's the first time they've laughed together in 25 years. And it's some of these, you know, kind of harried circumstances, you know, and that to me is like, without being realism, is like, that to me is that's how life is, you know. You're in the midst of this kind of crisis, and it's not really gallows humor, it's just like naturally kind of like the cosmos gives an opportunity for you to connect.
But you made the choice to drop all hostility in your performance. Like, that's the moment we see him, the first time he's supported, the first time he's unquestioned. Like, that's the unconditional love that he can't give
Absolutely.
his
Well,
father.
it's so immediate. Like, what are you going to do? Like, hold on, let me carry my deep-seated resentment into this.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you do that? They've done it, but more often than not, you're in the moment of that kind of uninhibited service to just the shock and the shame and the embarrassment of it, and you want to, you know, you're not trying. That's the moment where you could just wallow in someone else's loss of their dignity, but it doesn't occur to you, because it's just like, at that point it ceases to be this complicated relationship, and it's just someone in distress, you know.
Before you go, for the fans, Sherlock Holmes 3 and another Iron Man, is that something you can see in your horizon?
I can tell you for sure that we are obsessively working on another Sherlock.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the Marvel Universe seems to self-perpetuate. May I with this?
Oh, absolutely.
I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you around the clubhouse.
Absolutely.
Great to see you.